Hi guys, I was just looking at my old twin-engined radio-controlled boat that I made with the components from a toy car, radio-controlled car, and I was wondering whether I could reuse the motors and the receiver and the battery box and put them all in one of these cheap toy boats that I get from the 99p store. So that cost me 99p. And I was just thinking about making it twin engine, put two motors in it, and that little radio receiver, that's only one of those 27 megahertz ones, so it doesn't have much of a range, but it should be alright for that little pond that I keep trying them in. Should just about go from one side to another. So I think that might be my next little project. Take the bits off there, fit them in here, and then maybe fill it with that expanding foam just to fill up the gaps and make sure it doesn't sink. What I want to do with these electric motors is actually put them in the bottom of the boat and then cover them with the expanding foam. So I want to fill any gaps on them that are likely to get filled with the expanding foam. Obviously we need the shaft to be clear, so I've got drinking straw over the shaft that will go down to the back of the boat. Then I've got a bigger drinking straw that is the same size as that bush on the end of the motor. So that will fit over there. So I should probably hot glue that in place to seal it and cut it about here somewhere so that it wrap some tape round the inner tube so it holds it all in place and the expanding foam won't cause a problem then. That's the first one nearly finished. Don't know if you'll be able to see through the plastic straw, but we've got a yellow drinking straw round the actual shaft. Then I've got some red tape wrapped around the straw, and then we've got a bigger drinking straw covering the tape. Then there's a gap where the join between the shaft of the motor and the extension shaft, which is a bicycle spoke, so that join bit is inside the bigger drinking straw, so it's got plenty of room, so it still all spins freely. Then I've built up a little bit of hot glue around it to hold it in place. I'll put a little bit more around there in a minute just to make sure that we don't get any expanding foam getting into there. And then I'll need to do something to cover that end of the shaft so that that doesn't get sealed with the expanding foam. There's a little gap there as well that I need to make sure is filled, or at least not filled, by the expanding foam. So this isn't waterproofing it, this is to stop the expanding foam getting in there and sealing it all up and stopping it running. At the same time it may be waterproofing it, but that's not what I'm aiming for. The other thing is it may cause them to overheat because there'll be no airflow around them. So we'll see. I'd like to get the batteries as low as possible. Might be a case of taking the receiver off there. It's only one screw holds it in place. Put the receiver somewhere else, but arrange for the batteries to be right in the bottom. With the motors near the front. should help to sort of balance it out, have the weight of the batteries at the back, motors at the front, and have the receiver, which will be quite lightweight on its own. Maybe that could sit in the front here somewhere in a plastic bag so it's waterproof. That's in position now, so I've hot glued the motors in, hot glued the battery compartment in, got the receiver loose, hanging over the end, so time for some expanding foam. Just a little bit in the bottom, just to, as I say, stop it sinking if it turns over. Well, it's a bit of luck that I don't need too much, because that's it. That's used the last little bit in the tin. It hasn't completely filled the boat at all. So we'll just have to see if that foams up and does enough. I think it will. I think that'll do for what I need anyway. I left it overnight and that's foamed up nicely. So now I need to trim it so we can get the lid back on. That was fairly easy. I didn't even need to use a sharp knife. I used my letter opener. So, plastic bag for the receiver and we should be away. All up together in the bath. This is the sort of transmitter that comes with the original toy car, which has forwards, backwards, left and right. So because I'm using twin motors for driving it here, that does the right hand motor, forwards and backwards, but moving it left and right. I've had several suggestions from people that I could take the transmitter apart and just turn that round. Well, I'm afraid that doesn't happen. This is really cheap. All that you've got underneath here is a printed circuit board with some switches that are actually on the circuit board. So when you push it to the right, it pushes the right switch down. When you push it to the left, it pushes the left switch down. Without cutting the circuit board underneath and destroying the transmitter, there's no way of turning those switches 90 degrees. So this is fixed and it works fine. The only problem I have got is one motor's slightly stronger than the other one, so it doesn't go perfectly straight. So what you'd have to do on the lake is give it a bit of variation as you're going along, if you want to go in a reasonably straight line. The other reason it tends to turn on full forwards is that both motors are turning the same way. So you've got torque, the torque from the propellers turning, tending to make the boat turn anyway. Ideally, if I had two different propellers, one left-handed and one right-handed, we could put them on and have one of the motors going the opposite way, and that would help it to go straight. But having them both turn the same way, if you can imagine, as that's turning, it's tending to push the boat around. So you've got a fair bit of power steer. I also have this transmitter that comes from my hovercraft, and that one has the controls both pointing the right way. So this one, both forwards, backwards, just the one. So as I say, on the boating lake it's going to go to the right because the torque's going to turn it to the right, and I also think one of the motors is a little bit more powerful. But then that just makes it more interesting, trying to keep it straight. I could put a big rudder underneath and try and cure it that way, but at the moment I think I'll just leave it like this. Job done.